Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Chris Randone. Again, you have forgotten, or maybe not, that Dan and I have switched. He's running Monday or Wednesdays for a little while. I'm going to be doing the Sunday night, which you will be hearing on Monday podcast, joined by Chris. Chris, we were doing a little pre-show tilt together here for NFL. It has just been the last week and this week disaster for NFL for me. I've seen some nice screenshots from some of our members. One guy took down 25K on FanDuel. Shout out to him. I'm doing poorly in NBA the last 3 days, but it's been hockey. My saving grace has our hockey projections are amazing. I'll leave it at that. But how are you doing? It's been a whole week.
Oh, I know, man. When I get to hear your voice on Sundays, it really starts. It gets me prepared for the week of DFS, man. It's very motivating, and it's just once again, I'm just always glad to be in your presence and be on a podcast with a legend, man. It's just nothing feels better than this.
All right, well, much appreciated. Oh, now I know what the little we did the show, and we don't usually run a video on this one, but I can see behind you, and I've seen it on some of your other shows. I saw a little something on the wall that was holding a bunch of little somethings, and I couldn't figure out what those were. But then I saw you do a meditation, so I'm assuming those are the essential oils that are all part of the whole meditation thing. So for those of you that have not seen how Chris transforms his whole house every morning into a darkened, safe space, there's a little sage that is burned to cleanse the air, and then you have many choices of these oils here. Now, tell us a little bit about these oils. Are they just different scents? Do they do different things? Are they different consistencies? What's the little trick with those? Just the thumbnail sketch.
Yeah, no, we have about over 100 different types from the same company, and they all represent different scents and different meanings. So,
Okay.
like today, I put on finance and abundance before my meditation because it's Sunday, it's NFL, and we're heavy hitters on these days, and so I wanted to make sure that I was kind of ingrained in the finance oil and the abundance oil because that's what my meditation was focused on today. And so you kind of you put them over your third eye, and your third eye gets activated when the oils are put on them, and then that allows you to really go into a deep meditation.
All right. Now, third eye, for those of you listening, this is metaphorical sense here, but yes, okay, very neat. I had not realized what that was, but yeah, you have quite.
Dude,
quite a
it's
little
very.
collection.
I recommend it, man. It's very therapeutic.
I
And
liked your explanation of how it all works. I mean, it was a quick
yeah.
little 2-minute video. I thought, oh, wait a second, that's what meditating. I could kind of get into this. This doesn't seem too hard.
Dude, no, and everyone can do it their own way, man. So whatever floats your boat, you can practice it in so many ways, but it's just very soothing and calming for the mind. And when your mind's relaxed, I strongly believe you can do great things.
All right. Well, let's get on to great things here. We've got 9 games on Monday here, so that's a little bit more robust than you and I have done. So we're going to go by position here. We, of course, at the Early Bird are sponsored by Yahoo Fantasy Sports, so definitely check them out. They've got the baller that they're running every day, $10 entry fee there for NBA. They also are running on the weekend. This Sunday it was $200,000. We've got free content and content behind the paywall covering that, but if you have not yet signed up, you can use the promo code OSMO and come in on one of our links. You can find those links at the bottom of any of the primetime articles or the cash building blocks articles. So there's an article every day that's got that link at the bottom. Come in on that, make a deposit bonus up to $30. Yahoo Fantasy will match that in YSRP's Yahoo Sports Rewards points, and you can use those immediately into any contest. Good thing about Yahoo, most of the contests are between 1 and 10 entries in them. Their flagship contests, they do allow up to 150. They now have CSV upload and edit capability. But the one thing I want to point out, and this is what Alex has mentioned on a few shows, if you're one of the big players, kind of like Alex is, Adam has said this too, they're generally not playing 3 sites on these slates because Yahoo, or for NBA, because Yahoo they only have that one contest where that they can max enter with 150. And if they're trying to juggle FanDuel, DraftKings, etc., they're not getting over to Yahoo in time. So he said most of them aren't playing heavy volume over there. So they do for football, They probably will for baseball, but I just wanted to point out for those of you that are worried about NBA, they're not really in it as much just because it's a little trickier for them. So not quite overrun by the Apex Predators, but there's plenty of smaller contests, and I like to play in those as well because green is green. All right, Chris, 9 games. We're going to start out here at point guard. We have over-unders for total game totals for about 4 of the 9 games, but we have Toronto favored by 9. They're hosting Charlotte. We have Portland in Houston. Houston's favored by 7. We've got Milwaukee in Chicago. That's a home, and I think that's a home and home because they thought they just played each other the other day. Milwaukee's favored on the road by 7, and then we got San Antonio in Dallas. Dallas is favored by 5. Again, we're going to go by position here. Take us from the top here, Chris. We've got some intriguing plays here. We'll kind of keep the multi-eligible guys for their more traditional spots, but we've got Lillard, Kyrie Irving, who sat out on Saturday's early game with the shoulder injury, is considered questionable, but he is 8,500. We've got Kemba Walker going against Phoenix. That's an intriguing matchup. And then let's see who's another good point guard guy. Eric Bledsoe picking up a lot of slack now that Chris Middleton is out for a while. What do you like here from our more traditional point guards?
Yeah, I mean, Lillard's going to be in a nice spot. They're 2 top 10 pace teams. Lillard is at 8,600. So I feel like based on his last, 2 or 3 games, his price has kind of dropped down on 1,500. So I think he's underpriced here. And at Houston, I mean, yeah, you got to roster him. I think he's going to be a lock for me for sure. Love Donich as always. He's under 10K again, so I feel like it's always a bargain if he's under 10K. You've always mentioned it. He's triple-double potential, so you can't go wrong there. Harden at 12K. I mean, whether you want to put him in at the shooting guard position or point guard position, it's just really tough to kind of overlook him in any format because he just is able to get there in so many ways. So cash game, I think you for sure lock in Harden. And then Westbrook, man, he's going to be almost under 8K soon. It's incredible, but he's going to be 8,300. If you want to bank on him, I guess, but I just don't know if we're going to get that same Russell Westbrook from previous years because of him being on a team with Harden. It's just Harden is the main usage guy here. The way that they operate is kind of the same. And so it's really difficult to get 2 guys who are ball handlers that need the ball in their hands to create it. Obviously, one of them is going to lose out, and I feel like that's Westbrook at this point. And that's really tough situation because we all know the fantasy capabilities out of Westbrook. But as we go down, I think Bledsoe is a great call at Chicago. That'll be an up-pace game as well. Rubio 7K, can't go wrong there. But I think when you start going down, what I want to see is Irving going to play tomorrow, or is he questionable?
Still questionable. We're not sure. He did sit out that earlier, the 5 o'clock game on Saturday.
Yeah, I like Dinwiddie here, or Dinwiddie, excuse me. If Irving's out, I would go with Dinwiddie again. 6K. He's going to probably shoot 10, 12 plus shots. Great ball handler, going to get you assists. So I think he could definitely pay off. But right now, it's so hard to kind of see where the value is going to be because we don't know really anything lately as of late. So I think we should wait and see approach for tomorrow. But I think out of all the point guards, Lillard is by far my number 1 guy so far based on his price point.
All right, we've got, let's see, just trying to see what we might have for value. Andrew Wiggins had missed 2 games. Unfortunately, his grandmother had passed away, so he was up in Toronto with his family. He now has an illness, so he's considered doubtful. They're saying for Monday. That would keep some additional interest for us there in Jeff Teague. Of course, they, being the Timberwolves, are going to be in Utah playing at altitude, second highest city in the NBA. And they also, Utah plays a little bit slower and a little bit better defense, so not the best spot, but 5,600 there for Teague is interesting. Josh Okogie was a late scratch on Saturday night, so that's something to keep in mind as well. And then I'm just looking here for my comparison for Westbrook, where he's priced at now. They're not the same player. They get there in entirely different ways. But from a fantasy perspective and fantasy scoring, I think right now we should be equating Russell Westbrook and Malcolm Brogdon kind of as the same type of player. So if you need a different comparison for Westbrook, he's not the Westbrook of old, but he's still going to be pretty decent. He's going to be in the 40s. He does have the ability to break 50 fantasy points, but it's going to be tough with Harden there, just because of where the shooting and such is going to go. So I think that's kind of where I've put him. And, toe to toe, I'd still rather take Brogdon, but I think it's a reasonable comparison because we're seeing new things from Brogdon as well. We don't know for sure where his ceiling is going to be. He's kind of like the guy he's replacing, Victor Oladipo. But I think that's mentally what I want to start thinking of Westbrook as, to get him in that low $8,000 price point of a player. So.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he's so limited now in his assists that, with Harden, because Harden obviously is the main ball handler, but I think also he's struggling just mentally with this offense. I think he's usually the top dog. And when you have that mentality, he has the freedom to do whatever he wants, especially when he has the ball in his hands. He doesn't have that type of freedom now because of Harden. And so I think you're right. I think he's a completely different type of player now because of the situation that he's in. And I don't like or I don't mind the Malcolm Brogdon comparison. And Malcolm Brogdon is doing things we've never really seen before.
Right.
And who knows what happens when Victor Oladipo comes back. And that's what is kind of disappointing, because does it change the flow of the offense? And then does it limit Brogdon to where he's going to be in the 5-6K range, once Oladipo's back and settled in the offense?
All right, let's head on over here to the two guards. You've got Phoenix hosting Boston, so we've got Devin Booker, always an interesting option. He's not quite as dominant as he has been in the past with the ball in his hands all the time, because they have Ricky Rubio next to him. Heading into Saturday's game, Booker actually bested Rubio in that one, but heading into that game, Rubio and Booker each had four 40-point outings fantasy-wise and one 50-point outing. So I wanted to point that out, because while it's more likely that Booker gets there, Ricky Rubio, no slouch himself, but he's kind of curbing the upside. We're not seeing the 60-point forays as we did quite a bit over the last two seasons when Booker was just kind of doing everything. Donovan Mitchell kind of fits in both positions. I like him going against Minnesota at 7,900. That's intriguing. As we cruise down the price list here, let's see, a couple questionable tags. Brogdon's still dealing with a sore back. He left the game on, what day was the 12th? He left, or 15th. He left on Friday with an injury, did not play Saturday. He hurt his lower back, fell pretty hard on it, so we'll have to see what happens. Jeremy Lamb potentially could be coming back. He has missed the last half dozen games with an ankle injury, so we could see a whole new look there for the Pacers. Zach LaVine here is dealing with a sore leg. I want to say he missed a game, but he actually did not. He actually played 32 minutes there on Saturday, but keep an eye on that. Kobe White's been, he missed all his shots. Now he's been making a bunch of them. He's been up and down. A lot of question marks here, Chris, at the two guard spots. Does anybody pop for you?
Kind of like CJ McCollum in this matchup.
Okay.
It's going to be a great game for him to see a lot of possessions and to get up a lot of shots. And he's shooting a lot, man. 25, 18, 21 attempts from the field the last 3 games. As long as he's accurate, what I love about him is he gets rebounds, and he also is a ball handler at times when Lillard's on the floor. I like when the second quarter comes. McCollum usually comes in to start the second quarter. Gives him a lot of opportunities for assists, which we've seen that. So I feel like at 7,300 for the amount of volume that he has within the offense, I don't mind that. And I think the matchup is great. I think him and Lillard are going to be in a great spot tomorrow. It seems as if that stacking Houston games are kind of like the new thing, and Timberwolves, because these teams just play so fast and there's so many more possessions and so many shots taken up. I think DeRozan is someone I want to stay away from right now. He just has been kind of off and not producing to where we want at the 7,100 price range. If you're looking to go in that area, I'd rather go up to CJ McCollum. Van Fleet, he's always going to be on the floor a ton. Don't know how great the matchup is, though. In this case against Charlotte, it's going to be a little bit more slow. But I mean, he gives you enough time on the floor to at least produce and hit value there. And then as you go down, I think RJ Barrett at 5,600. The only thing that concerns me is Dennis Smith Jr. kind of affecting his minutes, because now they've gone down a little bit. But he's still an intricate part in this offense, and he's a scorer. And if he can score at 5,600, I don't mind that either. And then Indiana, we have to see with the injuries though. But I think Aaron Holiday is going to be in play against Brooklyn. It's a good matchup for him. And then I guess we'll weed out the rest of the value tomorrow once news starts really coming in.
Yep, absolutely. And I did look up that the Chicago and Milwaukee, they played each other last Thursday, but this is the home and home in between. They each had another game. Just kind of quickly skimming down here for any news. Keep an eye on Patrick Beverley. He's been dealing with a calf injury. He sat out on Saturday's game. That, of course, gives Lou Williams some minutes. We have DeJounte Murray should be back. He's not playing on back-to-back, so he's had a day off, but San Antonio's in the mix. And then you've got Portland, as you mentioned. You have CJ McCollum. He's been playing close to 40 minutes per game. They have a game on Tuesday in New Orleans, but they will be joined by new teammate Carmelo Anthony. Wow. Yeah. That's all I got to say. Now, Adam and I made fun of him all weekend. I said it was a cry for help. I feel bad for anybody from Portland. And Adam said, have you looked at some of the guys that Carmelo will be displacing if he gets minutes? I'm like, even crappy Carmelo might be better than some of those guys. So.
Yeah, I mean, who's he going to replace? Like Gary Trent Jr., Bazemore, Little, these guys, I think what they're going to be looking for is you get a solid 15, 18 minutes from him off the bench, or do you think he starts in the rotation?
I think he'll come off the bench at first, would be my guess. But I truly have no idea. I mean, so here's the interesting thing about Carmelo. We're not going to want to play him from a DFS perspective, but we need to figure out how he's going to impact the team, because the team is priced for him not being there. We know he's a ball stopper. We know he's mostly going to be a jump shooter here. He may or may not rebound. Now, he's had a whole better half of last season, plus the kind of debacle there in Houston, where the game has passed him by. He can still be a decent player, I think. He needs to change his style. Is he capable of that? I don't know. He didn't really want to be the third wheel there that much when he was in Oklahoma City. He did not change things and did not want to do defense in Houston. This is probably his last shot unless he gets a call from LeBron at some point to join the Lakers.
Oh, 100%. It's his last shot. I'm curious to see how his speed is, how his endurance is. I mean, obviously he's been out for a while, man, and you can't just like come back in and expect to be up to game speed, nor have like the endurance to keep up with these guys. So it'll be curious to see kind of how they weed him in, but wonder how his shot is too. I'm very curious. You made a great point. He's not fantasy worthy, but I mean, if he's 3K, 3,500, I guarantee you people will fire him up.
All right. We'll see what happens. Okay. Small forward. Giannis, of course, phenomenal option. The only worry is how many minutes is he going to play? Because as long as Milwaukee has games in hand, they are not going to tax him that much. His cap is at about 36, but when they rolled through Indiana in Indianapolis, he only played 28 minutes. Still dropped 56 fantasy points with 26 points, 13 boards, 6 assists on 10 of 17 shooting, 3 of 6 from downtown, but just 28 minutes. So makes it a little tough to consider him outside of tournaments. You had Paul George play magnificently, wait for it, in 20 minutes. This was a 150, that is 150 to 101 victory with the Clippers over Atlanta. It was an ass kicking. So George had 37 NBA points on 10 of 17 shooting. He's been 10 of 17 in both of his games. Kawhi Leonard actually was out with a knee injury, so he didn't play. Has not played the last 2 contests. So that was the back-to-back, and he sat out on both of them. So we'll have to see if he's available. If he's not, you still have to like Paul George going against the Thunder here. The Thunder just are not equipped to go against him. Kind of in the mid-tier. Look, I'm one of Kelly Oubre's biggest supporters. He's probably my favorite player in the league, but I don't like his current situation in Phoenix. He had his sort of ceiling game in the last one. I don't like the matchup for him against Boston because of Tatum and Brown, and they're both pretty decent defenders against him. So he's better in an up and down game. I really don't want to go there for him. And then at the low end here, the one guy who is kind of catching my eye once again, Norm Powell. So Norm Powell, I got mad because I was very disappointed in him, but he reminded us against Dallas, while he's pretty good. 32 minutes, 9 to 15 from the field, 40 fantasy points. He's going to get a ton of minutes with everybody hurt there in Toronto. You just got to be careful with him, and his price is coming up. What do you see at small forward?
Norm Powell. What? Nah, I like that call. So first things first, how about PG? Man, he looks incredible. He's averaging 2.3 fantasy points per minute right now in these 2 games. He's just been outstanding on both sides of the floor, which is not surprising. He's a great two-way player. Amazing how they have Leonard and George, who are both scorers and great defensive players. It's absolutely incredible. But as we go down, Wiggins, I'm not going to pay 7,800 for it, even though he's been on this great little streak with him being the ball handler. Definitely not an area that I want to go to now with kind of people coming back. If Teague is back now, it just doesn't really make sense. But in this little mix, I don't mind Oubre at 6,200.
I still think he's a trap.
Who, Oubre?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but man, look at the, 36 minutes last game, 47 fantasy points. Right. And he is a trap at times, but I think it's one of those things where you just have to take a gamble on him on a few shares if you're multi-entering. Nothing wrong with that.
Definitely for 150. I just can't get behind him in a main lineup. And when I was so, because I loved him when he was with the Wizards, and from when they drafted him, and he was just kind of a guy that would come in and dunk and just had hops out of the gym. But then when he went to Phoenix, he got to get a lot of run and was playing with their second unit, and then getting a ton of run, and then stepped in with all the various injuries and tanking that they were doing, started the last 15 games with them before he got hurt himself, and just put up some monster numbers. So he's the perfect guy in a garbage time situation. Ricky Rubio's making this so it's not a garbage time situation for Phoenix right now. So
yeah. Yeah, they've played somewhat good together, man.
It's kind of a shock. They're close, or last I looked, they were close to 500.
Yeah, they're playing great team ball, and maybe that's more beneficial for them because last year.
Yeah. Oh, pardon me. They're 7-4. They're 5th in the Western Conference.
Yeah, Booker last year. You had a great point earlier. I mean, he pretty much did everything. He played a lot of selfish ball. But in this year now, you have someone who is a team player in Rubio, kind of orchestrating the offense. And I mean, he's setting up guys for open looks. The guys on the front court are playing absolutely incredible, and Saric and Baines. So yeah, I like what they're doing. They're playing great team ball. Going back into this small forward position, though, I'm not liking too much. Maybe TJ Warren, maybe Covington, depending on injuries. Sark's 5,500. You can go there because right now with the injuries for Boston's front court, kind of weak. And I think Sark is in a good position in that matchup. Rudy Gay, yes, we love the name. It is hard to believe that, he plays more than 20, 25 minutes max. And what can he do in those 20, 25 minutes? So he's usually like a 24, 25 fantasy point guy. If you want to pay $5,000 for that, that's fine. That's 5 times value. PJ Tucker, disappointing last game, but plays a lot of minutes. He's a cheapie, but what can he do? That's the thing. He doesn't really have a high ceiling. So PJ Tucker normally is someone where if you want for cash, okay. But outside of that, there's just not much upside there for tournament play. And then you have these guys from Minnesota that we can all kind of factor in. But once again, we need to figure out what's going on with the news with injuries. And then the bottom tier, there's really not much, man. Not much that I feel comfortable with. I'd rather go elsewhere.
All right, let's look over here at power forward. I'm just going to kind of poke around here and see if anybody is intriguing. Just kind of a lot of names. Nobody overly exciting. We mentioned George, Leonard, Antetokounmpo. Kristaps Porzingis, solid play. 7,500 on DraftKings. He's kind of playing in that 32 to 34 minute range with getting up to 36 as needed. The Dallas has kind of been everywhere. They've lost some very winnable games and won some games I thought they should have lost, which is just bizarre. But they dropped 2 to New York, 1 in Dallas and 1 in New York, and then they ended up beating Toronto, which I didn't expect them to. So very bizarre, but great price there for Porzingis going against San Antonio at 7,500. LaMarcus Aldridge on the other side, 7,300. He's been a mixed bag this season. He has topped 40 fantasy points just twice in his last 10 games, but he's coming off a 12 of 20 performance with 30 points, 13 boards against Portland. By the way, that was, next person that says revenge, I'm yelling at you. That was the 16th time he has played them. He has topped 40 fantasy points in less than half of those games against Portland. Just throwing that out there. That one had worn off, but he had a nice showing. Julius Randle, I'm going to hand it over to you on that one. He has not topped 40 fantasy points. Well, let me say it. He's topped 40 fantasy points once in his last 7 games. That's not something I want to see from Julius Randle, but he does get to go against Cleveland. He put up 41 fantasy points against them in 31 minutes just a week ago. This is a nice matchup for him. Can he rise above the scrum of the many forwards that are in New York?
Man, I mean, I really like Kevin Love in this matchup too on the opposing team against this New York front court. Except Kevin Love at 7,800, I don't mind at all. Randle, man, I want to roster him. He's just been really a disappointment in a few games that I have rostered him. Last game only played 26 minutes, wasn't in foul trouble. They seem to kind of go with Portis when Portis has that hot hand, which is so annoying because then it limits Randle or even Knox. Knox comes in and like if he hits a couple threes, they'll continue to roll with Knox, and then Randle
and Mitch Robinson off the bench has been getting rebounds and blocks.
Yeah, and then you have Mitch Robinson too. So these guys, Fizdale, he seems to be going with the hot hand, and if they're playing in a good unison and like for a good stretch of run, he just won't touch it. He'll just let it go. So Mitchel Robinson, I love because he's so athletic. He's aggressive. He gets those defensive statistics like you mentioned. And I mean, he could be imagine if he played 36 minutes, what type of box score he would have, because what he does in 22 minutes is pretty great for a center position. He's 5,400, so he's interesting. But Randle, I guess you can go either or. In your main lineup, I would say no. And if you're multi-entering, I would say, yeah, definitely have a few shares.
All right. At the bottom end, we're going to have to wait and see if anything pops from a value perspective. It, of course, will. 18 teams in action. Something's going to be there. OG Anunoby has seen his price drop dramatically from 6,200 to 6,000 to 4,800 now. It's 4,600. That is worth a flyer there. Again, he's going to have to help absorb those minutes there from Toronto. We'll just see. We'll have to see. But that stuff will come open for us. Karl-Anthony Towns going against Utah. That one doesn't feel like a great matchup. Not that, Towns won't put his 50 fantasy points up, but him getting to 65, 70, a little tough going against Rudy Gobert. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the center. I want to see how Gobert's done historically against Karl-Anthony Towns here.
Yeah, no. Siakam's 9K. I don't mind that. There's been a few games this year where Charlotte has struggled defensively against front courts, and Siakam, he's on the floor a lot, man. So he's playing 40-plus minutes every night, and at 9K, I think you're going to want to go ahead and pay that. There's nothing wrong with that. Gobert, I guess we're going to hear what he's done against Towns here shortly. Capella, he's going to be questionable still with that concussion. So I'm not sure if he plays or not, but if he does play, I don't mind him against Whiteside. I'm curious to see how he's done in the past against Whiteside as well. It's a really good matchup for him because Portland does play pretty soft in their front court. Porzingis is 7,500. Now, Porzingis, if he can shoot and his shots on, he's definitely someone I want to go ahead and roll with no matter what, hands down. 7,500 for Porzingis. I'd rather pay up to Porzingis than pay for, let's say, Randle at 66. Aldridge had a come-to-life game last game. If you rostered him, it paid off immensely. 6,600, put up 54 fantasy points, played 35 minutes. The thing with Aldridge is this. If he plays the way he played last game, where he's aggressive, his shots going in, and he's actually crashing the boards, then you got to go ahead and roster him at 7,300. It's kind of hard to not go that route. And with Dallas, I mean, what do you got? Powell, you got Keebler. I mean, these guys I feel like are no matchup for Aldridge. So I don't mind him either here. And then we go down to the sixes, and this is where it gets interesting because I think Harrell's in play, Turner's in play at 6,100. These guys are kind of priced a little bit too low. And I mean, for me, I do like going with, the two center approach at times. So with with Towns really being the clear-cut center, not having to worry about Embiid or Drummond or anyone, I don't mind pivoting down here and fading Towns because Gobert plays great defense. And so you're going to break it down here right here in a minute.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't mind pivoting away from Towns this game and going with a few of these guys in the 6K range because they do present a lot of upside for their price points.
All right, last 4 games that Towns has faced Gobert, he has scored 50, 46, 60, and 64 fantasy points. The 3 prior to that were 320 and 41. So kind of the point being is he's, 50 is a reasonable outcome. Going to be hard for him to get much above that with any sort of confidence. Gobert, on the other hand, last 2 has 33 and 37. If we look at his last, 7 total, 4 of them have been between 30 and 37. 3 of them have been between 52 and 58. So kind of all over the place there for Gobert. He would be the guy I'd lean to a little more here just because of the cheaper price, and it's the rebounding. So Gobert's rebounding 10 and 13. I'll do points and rebounds here. 10 and 13, 17 and 4, 18, 16, 22, 13, 26, 16, 10 and 13. So he's getting double digits darn near every time. That's a solid one. I'd like the call out there of Miles Turner. He had missed 8 games, came back, played 33 minutes on Saturday. That was a little bit of a surprise. Dropped a 40 burger there. He is 6,100 going against a combination of DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen. So we'll have to see what happens there. But 6,100, kind of interesting. Anything else as we wind down the show here? And we're gonna. Sorry, I'm gonna throw this to you because this is something I do with Adam, but we haven't done this yet. We're also gonna talk quickly just FanDuel and Yahoo. But so we'll circle back after you kind of give your assessment of this thought because I'm gonna ask you a couple pointed questions here.
No, I mean, there's a lot of value looking at it in the power forward center position tomorrow. So, and some of these centers are power forward eligible as well. So I'm not going to mind probably paying down and pivoting tomorrow to go to these areas and maybe paying up at the guard position, such as Harden or Doncic or Damian Lillard, who I feel like Lillard and McCollum are in a great spot tomorrow, and I feel like they are locks. So I'm probably going to start my build out with them. And then kind of branch out elsewhere because that game's going to have obviously a lot of ownership probably too, because it's going to be a high paced, high possession game. So yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait till tomorrow to see kind of where we start going with injuries and really things that we're waiting on.
All right. Now you still play some on FanDuel relatively regularly for NBA, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the center, and I just asked this because we're going to talk about centers, and it's a little different there because you only have one of them. So when I start talking about kind of the value play at center, you do have opportunity cost, but as you mentioned, not quite as many guys out there in Towns is in a tough matchup. But Mitchel Robinson at 6,300, that's kind of interesting because you get 3 points for blocks and steals, and of course his calling card are blocks. So I think that one's kind of interesting. Would you go with him? Or would you consider, I asked the question and then I changed my filter. Would you consider Robinson, or would you want to go for a more established guy like, say, Tristan Thompson or Montrezl Harrell, who are each $1,000 more?
So if I'm going to pivot from Towns, Mitchel Robinson, I prefer more on DraftKings.
Okay.
And I say this because, well, one, there's really unknown if he's going to play or not because he missed practice today with an ankle injury. So didn't go to practice, and I guess we'll have to wait till tomorrow to see.
Who didn't go to practice?
Mitchel Robinson.
Oh, shoot. I didn't see that.
Yeah, so he missed practice today. And so that will boost the stock tomorrow if he's out of Portis and Randall. And so if that's the case, clearly you're going to want to load up there. But I think Miles Turner and Wendell Carter are in great spots, and their price points are very appealing on FanDuel, 6,900 and 6,600 respectively. Wendell Carter, if he just doesn't get into foul trouble, he could be a great producer. The only thing is he gets into foul trouble, and that if he can just eliminate that issue, it'll allow him to spend more time on the court, and which that will give me even the more utmost confidence in him. So he's way more athletic than Lopez. And I feel I think they played already this year. Is that correct, against each other? Yeah, he got 6 fouls in 20 minutes. and obviously he didn't get enough time on the court. So, but I don't mind Montrezl Harrell as well.
All right. One of the cheaper guys, Aaron Holliday. He started the last 6 games now. TJ McConnell surprisingly out. We thought he was going to be the value guy we were going to look to. He's still questionable. And then again, if Malcolm Brogdon's out, you can consider Holliday. I do want to put out the Holliday has not really scored much above 30 fantasy points, so there is a bit of a ceiling there. But he is 4,100 on FanDuel. He is 55 on DraftKings. Less interest there. We turn it over to our presenting sponsor, Yahoo. Looking there, they've got James Harden. He is now the highest priced player of the season at 58. So that is a tough ask with Russell Westbrook likely in the mix. But Luka Doncic is an intriguing pivot at 50. Pascal Siakam, 43. That's kind of a nice price. Kyrie Irving, if he plays through a shoulder injury, at 43, an interesting one as well. Damian Lillard, also 43, gets that matchup against Houston. Those are some guys that I like there. If we're looking for some super cheapies, they of course have a lot of guys at the $10 and $11 range. You've got Aaron Holiday is at 14. I feel that might be a little too much unless you just happen to have 2 or 3 extra bucks and want to go there. But you've got Rodney Hood at 10. You've got Mitch Robinson at 19. We'll have to see what happens with his ankle issue. As you had mentioned, you've got Wendell Carter at 18. You got Dwight Powell, Mo Harkless, Tomas Satoransky. They're all at 10 or 11. So plenty of value guys there. Not all $10 players are created equal there. So you do want to be careful and make sure you're getting one of the better ones. You can, of course, figure that out if you jump behind the paywall at Osmo and get the projections. Those are the same projections that Alex himself uses. They come straight from his model. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, to get 50% off any 1-month package at Osmo. And of course, Fred Van Elite is on the slate, so I will be dropping the Fred Van Elite fan club link in the DK Osmo League. So all you got to do to join that, go to my pinned tweet, join that Osmo DK League, and then you'll get an alert every time I post that. It's 75 people, top 15 paid out. It's $1. It must fill to run. It comes through the normal DK payout, but if you win with an Osmo avatar, I will make sure you get 30 free months of Osmo premium content. Chris, I'll make sure
30?
you get 30 free
30?
months. 30 free months. I misstate that. 30 free days, 1 month.
Damn, I was about to say, man, they get 2 almost 3 years.
Yikes! Somewhere Tom's ears are perking. Damn it, Emac! What are you doing now?
Oh man, someone was about to get real happy.
Whew, that was lucky. I rescinded it just in time. Didn't take my hand off the piece before I made the move. So there we are. 30 days. 30 days. Goodness gracious. All right. Well, with that, we are going to get on out of here. You can follow Chris on Twitter. That is Chris Randone on Twitter. It is EMAC DFS, and it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.